If we took a boiler that's just been installed, they're roughly around about 90% efficient. So that basically means for every pound of energy you're buying, you're actually getting 90 pence worth of energy.
Yeah.
With a heat pump, for every pound you put in, you're getting £4 worth of energy back, 4 times the efficiency of a gas boiler. The next development is they will be getting smaller and smaller.
Will it be like mobile phones? Will they get smaller and smaller and then just get weirdly bigger again?
And the lifespan of a heat pump versus a gas boiler, traditional gas boiler, 10 years. You might get a bit more than 10, a heat pump 15 to 20 years. So you also get in a product with a much longer lifespan as well. I think people need to think about when they sell their property. If they sell their property with a product that's 400% efficient, that's quite a plus. But ultimately, it's very much about you really are doing your part for the environment along with reducing your bills ultimately.
Hello and welcome to Positive Energy, powered by theecoexperts.co.uk, the show in which we discuss cutting your energy bills and decarbonising your home. I'm your host, Sam Pamphlon. Today we're talking heat pump myths, savings and solar panels with David Leighton of LG Heating Solutions. Welcome to Positive Energy, David. Thanks for coming in. Now, you're going to have said this 1,000 times before, but I'm not very knowledgeable about these things. Could you explain to me exactly what a heat pump is and how it works?
Great question. Start with the difficult ones. I mean, the simplistic way of putting it is that everyone's got a heat pump in their house. It's a fridge. So a fridge is a heat pump in reverse. So it's technology that's been around since the 1920s, 1930s. But ultimately, a heat pump takes energy from the air. There's heat in the air, and our heat pumps and most heat pumps will work down to like minus 20 degrees. So there's even energy in the air at minus 20 at cold temperatures. So ultimately, a heat pump takes energy out of the air, which passes over a heat exchanger, goes over a refrigerant, which is super sensitive and will take the heat out of the air. And ultimately what will come out of the front of the heat pump is very cold air. And it's taken the warm air and will work that through the refrigerant or go into a unit called a compressor, which heats it up. And ultimately that unit will then heat your hot water very super efficiently in comparison to a traditional gas boiler.
I mean, in terms of efficiency, how does it compare to sort of a standard gas boiler? I mean, at this stage of its development, and I know that the technology is, you're saying it's from the 20s, but in terms of efficiency, how much more efficient is it?
I guess, so gas boilers will be at all levels of efficiency, from an old boiler that's 10 years to a super new gas boiler. So if we took a boiler that's just been installed today, they're roughly around about 90% efficient. So that basically means for every pound of energy you're buying, you're actually getting 90 pence worth of energy. Yeah. With a heat pump, for every pound you put in, you're getting £4 worth of energy back. So 400% efficient against a 90% average efficiency on a gas boiler. So 4 times the efficiency of a gas boiler.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it is.
So there are some myths about heat pumps, which I'm sure you've heard most of them. What I'm going to do, because these aren't things I believe, and I don't want you thinking I believe these things, I'm going to fire these at you, sort of a quick fire round style.
Be gentle with me, but
I will. I will slip into some sort of character almost. The transformation will be amazing. You give me quick fire answers if you're able. Okay, you ready?
I'm very ready.
Okay,
I'm on the table.
I'm pumped for this, I said. All right. Heat pumps don't work.
They definitely work. Otherwise, I'm out of a job. So that's my number one priority.
Yeah. Oh, that was an easy one. I'm easing you in.
Yeah.
Heat pumps don't work in cold weather.
Well, they actually work down to minus 16, minus 18 degrees. I don't think it gets that cold in the UK.
Not yet.
No, that's a good point. It's technology that's been around a long time. It's not new. And I think that's a myth, that they're a new product on the block. They've been around for a long, long time. So they definitely work, and they work in super cold temperatures in super cold countries. We deal with Scandinavia, and it gets very, very cold.
Pretty chilly.
It gets super cold there.
Chilly, yeah.
So they definitely work.
That was a really good answer, and you've actually gotten rid of some of the other myths that I've got here. Okay. Heat pumps don't work in old buildings.
I think the key to that is getting and working with an experienced heating engineer or heating company. But every property will have its own peculiarities, whether, one property is well insulated, another not so insulated. One property might have underfloor heating, which it works superbly with. And another might not. So it's very much each property has to be taken on its own merits.
So have you got to have underfloor heating?
No, so underfloor heating is not a necessity. Heat pumps work beautifully with underfloor heating.
Is that because they're creating more of a sort of a gentle ambient kind of temperature as opposed to radiators coming on and then
Exactly. I mean, exactly. I mean, with traditional gas boilers, you walk in and it's cold, you whack your thermostat up, the boiler has to fire up, and at a very, an expensive cost to get your heating system to the temperature you want. With a heat pump, it's much better to keep an even temperature all the time and not have these huge spikes and drops. And underfloor heating works at its most efficient when it has a low temperature water going through it. And heat pumps run at a low temperature, so the two together are a perfect marriage. So you don't have to have underfloor, but it works really well with underfloor.
But you're saying, okay, so I'm getting into this now. I've dropped the character. They work at this sort of cooler temperature, creating a more sort of standardized temperature without these big spikes. Am I still going to get ripping hot water for a bath?
The heat pump will sort out your heating and your hot water. You'll get super hot water in a very efficient way, and your heating will be at a temperature and a much more pleasant, even temperature, rather than whacking up to 22, 23 degrees and then having to turn it down. What you will see more and more is new houses are having heat pumps put in because of the super efficiency, and they work so well with new properties as well as old properties. But we'll give you piping hot water.
You're absolutely smashing this. I'm feeling educated.
Do you want to buy one now? Is that what you're...
Yeah. Well, I'll have the 7,500 grant and I'll sit on that for a little bit. So resizing radiators, there does have to be some of that, or is that a necessity across the board? I
mean, again, each property taken on its own merits depends on the design of that system. But in an old property, the likelihood is you will have to have some of your radiators changed to larger radiators, because you will need, because it works at a lower temperature. Bluntly, you need more metal to get the same heat.
More sort of surface area.
Exactly.
It's not new. An untested technology. Look how well you've done it. These are all the myths I've got here, and you've gazumped nearly every one. Noise. Here's another thing I've heard.
They're noisy.
Because my fridge, I've got a nice fridge, but every now and then it sounds like a witch.
Does it?
It does. Every now and then it goes like that, and it's terrifying. Now imagine that in my garden.
I think it's time to get a new fridge, personally.
Oh, don't say that. I can't afford a new one. I've just spent 10 grand on a heat pump.
Have you? Oh dear.
I thought we should.
Yeah. So noise is you're right. Noise is a myth. Ours has a quiet mark, so there is an award for noise within the heat pump world. So ours has got this quiet marker. They run at about 58 decibels. So what does 58 decibels mean?
That's my kid
breathing. A
breathing.
normal fridge that doesn't sound like a witch is around about the same sort of noise. So that background hum of your fridge in your house, other than yours, because you've got a strange fridge.
Just every now and then.
Yeah.
It's haunted.
So a heat pump will be noise-wise similar to the hum of a normal fridge.
Yeah.
Just to give you some idea.
Plus it's outside.
Exactly.
So it's the neighbour's problem, really, isn't it?
I mean, depends whether you like your neighbour or not.
Well, where I live, there are fridges outside as well. So, all right, okay. The government wants us to rip out our perfectly efficient gas boilers because of the woke mind virus that's insisting we have these heat pumps, even though they don't work, because we've all been overrun by net zero zealots and the woke mind virus. I think I said that twice. What say you?
Well, great question again.
Beautifully delivered, David.
Superb.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, there's a level of future-proofing our energy consumption, and also where we get our energy from. A lot of our gas is coming from a long way away. So from a government perspective, they would like to have more control over where our energy comes from and how it's produced. So heat pumps versus gas boilers. Electricity we produce in the UK, a lot of gas comes, as I say, from pipelines a long way away. It's very much about future-proofing our energy, but also from, as I said earlier, the efficiency of a gas boiler. They're not efficient.
Of those myths, Which one do you roll your eyes at the most?
I think that they don't work is, they won't work. They're great in new build property with super insulation, but they won't work in a standard small, or medium sized property, which is totally wrong. It's, as I say, it's very much about get the design right. There's nothing the matter with the product. It's tried and tested, and super efficient, super reliable. And the lifespan of a heat pump versus a gas boiler. A traditional gas boiler, 10 years, you might get a bit more than 10, a heat pump 15 to 20 years. So you also get in a product with a much longer lifespan as well.
And as you were saying before, with the passage of time and the competitive element, that in that 10 to 15 years, would you imagine that the prices of boilers and heat pumps would be kind of on a parallel? I mean, they be similar?
It's definitely a market that's getting more and more competitive. And I think the next big change will be physical size, as in they will get smaller. And I think it's a very competitive market now. And you're starting to see, in a good way for the consumer, a product that's coming out at a lower price. And the next development is they will be getting smaller and smaller. So,
will it be like mobile phones? Will they get smaller and smaller and then just get weirdly bigger again?
Hopefully, well, I don't think they'll ever get to the size of a mobile phone.
Like the size of a house.
Yeah, I think what happens is when there's that much competition, everybody's looking for that USP. How are you going to be different? How are you going to differentiate yourself? And the physical size is definitely, that will change over the next few years. And the other big change, I think, is heat pumps. You'll see them in also at the other end, larger for commercial buildings, and for schools, and we're already seeing that market starting to grow as well as the traditional housing market.
It's the future.
I think it definitely is. It's here to stay, and it definitely is the future, yeah.
So obviously you would think that the knock-on from that is that you're going to save money once you have one installed?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a fantastic program on Channel 5 about 12, 18 months ago about heat pumps, where they put heat pumps into two traditional properties. One was a family property, one was a couple, different lifestyles. And the positiveness around the efficiency of the unit was it will work in an old school Victorian property alongside a very highly efficient new property which has got superb insulation.
Yeah.
So once you have the heat pump fitted and you're running a product that's at 400% efficiency, ultimately you're going to use less energy. Also, from the point of view of running costs and the initial cost, there are quite a few government grants available to help you when you purchase a product. Also, which is not widely known, zero VAT on the installation of a heat pump versus a gas boiler. So there are a number of ways of also saving money, not only once the unit's in and saving you energy, but on the initial cost to purchase the product.
So with that government sort of grant, obviously that's not something that, as heat pumps become, I guess, more prevalent and more the norm, those sort of subsidies might taper off. So now would be a kind of a good time to be thinking about that. But that also says to me that maybe the installation is quite an outlay initially.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be different for different properties, obviously, depending on the size of the property and the level of insulation, and also the size of the radiators. Because in reality, in an old property, there's the potential that you might need to take a radiator that might be what you'd call a single panel and turn it into a double panel. Because heat pumps run at a lower temperature, typically the water temperature will be between 35 and 55 degrees versus a traditional gas boiler, which will be between 70 and 80 degrees. So the water is a lot hotter. So your radiators heat up quicker. So you do need potentially a larger radiator in some properties, in some rooms. But the key to that is making sure you get a super experienced heating engineer to come in and design and check your system before putting the heat pump in. So it'll be different for different properties. But ultimately, there is an initial cost to put a heat pump in that will be higher than a traditional gas boiler. But currently, there's a government grant up to £7,500, which is available. And there's also grants coming, which we think potentially might grow on that 7,500, but currently it's 7,500. There's also funding for low-income families as well. So there's a lot the government are doing to try and influence and help people ultimately bring the price of a heat pump to the level of a price of a gas boiler.
I suppose in the same way, like EVs the prices will slowly come down.
Yeah.
It'll be the same for heat pumps as we go.
And the market is very, very competitive. So we're seeing more manufacturers coming into the market. I mean, just to give you some idea, there are something like 28 million gas boilers installed in the UK, and around about 260,000 heat pumps. So
what's left in the market is enormous.
It's huge, yeah.
In simplest terms, why should people think about getting a heat pump?
Well, there are a number of reasons. From an environmental point of view, obviously, you are using a clean fuel. You're not using a fossil fuel, so you're not using gas. You're using electricity. You're reducing carbon emissions out into the environment. Also, I think people need to think about when they sell their property. If they sell their property, I think with a product that's 400% efficient, and helping the environment, that's quite a plus.
Yeah.
When you go to sell your property. So I think it's also thinking about the future as well. But ultimately, it's very much about you really are doing your part for the environment, along with reducing your bills ultimately.
In terms of sort of other alternatives to fossil fuels, so solar panels, storage batteries, EVs, how does the heat pump work in tandem with low carbon options like these?
Yeah, great question. I mean, they're actually the perfect partner. So I visited an installer recently where the householder was having batteries fitted, solar and a heat pump. And his ultimate goal was to get off the grid. So, not having to buy any electricity. So producing his own electricity. So the solar ultimately would produce enough electricity to make his heat pump work. He had batteries to store any excess electricity he was producing. So the installer I met on site was very confident that particular property would be off grid very, very quickly. So
that's incredible.
They work really well with batteries and solar. It's the perfect partnership.
Because I guess that efficiency means that even in a country where we're not sort of bright sunlight all the time, that the electricity that you are getting from those solar panels is being used really efficiently. And that efficiency, like you're saying, is set to go up. So with solar panels, are you then looking at, you'd be making a further saving at the minimum, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then possibly with batteries as well, there would be the possibility to remove yourself completely.
To literally go off grid. And that is, we are seeing a lot of heating installers where they're working with people who that is their goal.
Yeah.
And as you said, very much the heat pump is a perfect partner for solar and batteries.
Yeah.
100%.
So how do you manage the electricity and charging setup in your home so that everything works when you need it to?
So I live in a property that has a heat pump. It's interesting because I had to get used to a slight change in moving from a heat source where your thermostat, you'd whack it up and whack it down, whack it up. So definitely with a heat pump, leave it at, somewhere between 16 to 19, possibly 20 degrees. Leave it at that temperature and it will just perfectly give you the correct temperature for your property. There is a level of education, and I think that again, if you're working with a really good heating engineer, they will take you on that journey of the way you control a heat pump is slightly different. But I'm pleasantly surprised just how easy it is and how well it heats the house up and gives some excellent hot water, which you mentioned earlier.
Yeah. I mean, where I live, we've got a fairly new boiler, but it's just the standard sort of on-off. And you can, you put it in and it comes on at a certain time. But it does feel like you're either cold and or sweating. That's how, if you were to come over to my house, David, I'd say bring a jumper and a towel.
I'd like to come just to hear your fridge, to be fair.
It's terrifying. And the light doesn't work in it.
Excellent.
And the shelves are broken a little bit. But it looks nice on the outside.
That's good.
I bet you can guess what brand it is. So obviously working in this industry doesn't mean that you have to be perfect at home. But I would like to know what you've done in your home to sort of insulate and sort of save energy. I mean, talking about sort of like fabric things, have you done any sort of draft proofing or any extra insulation?
I have gone round 2 or 3 doors where it needed some draft proofing, but minimal really. From the point of view of living in a property with a heat pump, we didn't have to do an awful lot, if I'm honest. As I say, we had double glazing anyway, had insulation in the cavities.
Do you have any other low carbon technology in your home? You've got the heat pump? Or if you don't, like solar panels or something, if you don't have them, is that something you'd be looking to do?
Look, it is something we've looked at, but no, I haven't currently got solar panels, but that will be the next logical step, to look at solar panels and a battery. We have a super efficient cylinder, which is the hot water side, that was already in the property. That is something that some people might have to look at as an option. Controls. So you can purchase controls that will also sense the outside temperature, which is definitely something that we'll look at. That will make your heat pump even more efficient, because the outside controls are talking to your inside thermostat and understand the temperature outside and will relate that to your thermostat inside. So that is something that's definitely worth looking at, the controls, heating controls in your property.
So your next big ticket item, I think you're saying, would be the installation of solar panels.
Yeah, I think solar panels and battery are the two products that make the heat pump even more efficient and really, start to. They're if you get all three together, that's the trinity. That's a real game changer.
Yeah, and then you're off grid,
and you are totally off grid.
Yeah.
And those wonderful energy companies will be knocking on your door, very unhappy.
They're lovely people.
Yeah, in fact, you can sell energy back to them, so it's a win.
That's the other option, of course.
Perfect.
You can store it and you get a load of batteries and sell it back to them. And you can start sending them letters when they don't pay in time.
Exactly. You can go around to them, cut them off.
Cut them off.
You're dead to me now.
What would be your first piece of advice to a homeowner looking to invest in a heat pump?
I think, don't listen to the myths that are out there. Be a bit more open-minded. Go and talk to a heating engineer who is experienced in installing heat pumps. You can look on a register called the MCS register. So the MCS register is a register for heat pump installers who can qualify and work with you on getting that grant back, the £7,500 we talked about. It's really important to go and talk to an experienced heating company to get their advice and work with them, and let them come and ultimately survey your property and look at what might need to change or might not need to change.
Because as you said, every sort of house will be different. There will be a different, with the water cylinder or changes in radiators or additional installation. There might be some other things that you might need to add. So your initial outlay will vary depending on your property. But with that government grant as well, it definitely feels like, at the very least, it's worth investigating.
Look, 100%. No property will be the same. They're all different. Some properties might have radiators that are potentially oversized at the time. My advice is to get an experienced heat pump engineer in to get their advice and be open-minded and not listen to the myths of they're noisy, they don't work, they're expensive, they're big, they're ugly, because none of those points are true.
David, thank you so much for coming in. Thank you for your expertise. I think we've covered a hell of a lot of ground there about heat pumps, myths, what the future holds and what can be achieved with heat pumps. Links in the description to lg.com for some of the things that we talked about today. But David, thank you so much for coming in. Take care.
Thank you for having me.
Hope you enjoyed that episode of Positive Energy. If you want more information about decarbonising your home, please go to theecoexperts.co.uk. See you next time.